Welcome everybody to our very first episode of what we're calling People in Our Neighborhood After School Edition is what I meant to say. I was thinking last night, Cece, that this is very fitting because one of the things that you and I first bonded over was our mutual affection for Mr. Rogers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the title of the series comes from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and he used to sing a song introducing different people that lived in the neighborhood, like the mail carrier and the garbage person and all these sorts of things. And so that's sort of what we're doing with this series, is trying to introduce members of the Austin College community to other people in our Austin College neighborhood, such as it is. My name is Erin Koppel-Smith. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a professor in the Media Studies program, and I'm also the director of First Year Experience. And the idea here is that each episode of People in Our Neighborhood After School Edition will feature a member of our community, faculty, staff, students, alumni, teaching other members of the Austin College community, and primarily students, how to do something. So today's inaugural episode, we have Austin College's amazing First Lady, Cece O'Day, has agreed to join us. So, hi, Cece.
Hi.
And Cece, tell us what we're making today.
We're going to start out making Haystack Cookies. This is one of my son Ryan's favorites, and in our family they are just called crunchy cookies because of the crunchiness of the cornflakes, but they are super easy to make. You don't need an oven. It is a no-cook cookie. It is also a gluten-free cookie, so if anybody's worried about that. And I suppose they are pretty close to even a vegan cookie, but
yeah.
So we're going to start out with our trusty bag of butterscotch morsels. And I find it easiest, I should go over here. I find it easiest to do half at a time. Like a whole bag of butterscotch morsels is an awful lot to melt. So I am dumping my best guess of half the bag into my microwave safe bowl. Can everybody see this well?
Yep.
Yes.
I have my ingredients,
Okay.
I have my equipment. It's a rookie mistake here. Okay. So we're going to put half the bag in our
bowl. In the microwave safe bowl.
Okay.
And now I'm just going to put it in the microwave for 30 seconds.
Okay. And now, Cece, before we started, we were sort of talking about the fact that some people on the call who shall remain nameless may or may not have been able to find butterscotch chips.
Yes.
And
Same
so
thing.
You can experiment, right? Use whatever you can find.
Yep, absolutely. And the melting point is probably about the same.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And you will see as I am making this, I'm not measuring any of these things. So
just do our best, huh?
Now, you can see my butterscotch chips are not in any way completely melted. Maybe the bottom layer is starting to stick to the bottom.
Yeah.
But this is when I'm adding my dollop, big spoonful of peanut butter.
Okay.
And now it's all going back in the microwave for a minute.
A minute. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Peanut butter on my arm. Now, Cece, where did this recipe?
I suppose I should have said. I think my mom started making these. This is a recipe that I learned from my mom. I think she saw it in a magazine. Oh, so many years ago.
Sure.
Some people make this with chow mein noodles instead of cornflakes. So you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the combination of the butterscotch morsels and the peanut butter, but we have always really liked this. Like I said, and also it's just so easy to make this year. Yeah.
Okay, very easy.
Okay.
Nice.
Be careful
Yeah, that was
getting your my bowl's a little hot here.
I got schmutz on my fingers too.
Yeah.
Battle wounds, friends. It's not really just mess. Okay. For any fans of the TV series Schitt's Creek out there, I'm using my fold in the cheese spatula. It's a good one. You know that show? It's a classic.
And I suppose I should have said, wash your hands first, because we're going to be using our hands a lot in making these things.
Well,
I think it's the
washing their hands pretty often anyway.
Yeah. I think it's the Barefoot Contessa who says a pair of washed hands are the chef's best tool.
Yes, that sounds like her.
Yeah. So I am stirring this up so that the heat distributes a little bit and it helps to melt the butterscotch morsels.
Right.
Part of what I'm doing is smashing them down because they're still in that, they have all those stabilizers in there.
Right.
So you have to sort of get rid of the shape of the morsel.
Yeah.
Squish it down a little bit.
Very nice.
And you're just going to want to keep going until it's smooth.
Okay. But should we put it back in the microwave, or will that just overdo it?
I think that will overdo.
Okay.
Unless it is really hard.
Okay.
You can sort of see mine. I have little lumps.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put it back in, it tends to seize up.
Right. Sure. That makes sense.
I had to switch from my rubber spatula to a more serious spoon.
Oh, okay.
And that made my lunch go away very easily.
Yeah, I'm just using a metal soup spoon because it's hard and I can smash it against the side of the bowl.
Wow.
And I have also learned from doing this before that it is about the same, it's about the right size for the scoops of cookies. I mean, this is what we're going to end up with.
Okay. So like the bigger size of soup spoon is what you
Yes.
use, like a tablespoon.
Yeah.
Can we get a report back from our friends and colleagues who are not using butterscotch chips? Is it coming together okay for you? Oh, very nice. Okay, just a minute. Hang on, hold that up one more time. I'm going to spotlight you real quick so we can see it. Okay. Yeah, it's coming together.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Okay. And I've been joined in the kitchen by my 7-year-old, who is watching me quizzically from across the room. But he does not like to wear shirts. So
well, this is a good recipe.
It is. Corbett, are you going to eat these?
Okay. Mine has gotten pretty smooth.
Haystacks. It's what I'm mixing. He said, "What is that delicious smell?" So
that's a good start.
It is a good start.
I have the medium-sized bowl.
Okay.
And, you have those 3 nesting bowls. This is the medium size.
Okay.
And it's time to dump in the cornflakes.
Okay, whoops. Dump in the cornflakes, got it. I'm using a mix of crunchy cereal that I happen to have around the house.
Perfect.
Okay, cornflakes and Special K, and I think Rice Krispies is what I'm using.
I would not.
Like kashi shredded wheat with berry in it. So these are going to be really weird because I got white chocolate instead of butterscotch. I'm just going crazy over here.
And the idea is that I would not put in more than starting with like a cup and a half-ish of your cereal or whatever crunchy thing you're putting in there.
Okay.
Because the idea is that we're going to try to coat the cereal with our melted mixture.
Sure. Yeah, so mine's looking pretty much like yours, I think, Cece. Maybe a little bit wetter. Oh, you're far away, I forgot.
That's great. Well, the more wet ingredients you have, the more like candy your cookies will be. Yeah, it will hold together really well.
Not a bad thing.
No. This is one of the things that I knew I was a real grown-up. I knew I was a real grown-up when my mom said, you need to make this because yours are better than mine.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's exciting.
And this was one of those things, and I wanted to tell her, well, Mom, it's because I put more peanut butter and butterscotch stuff on the crunchy cookies than you do.
You know, when I was growing up, my mom is a really excellent cook, and she would get so frustrated because she would go out with her friends, or she plays bridge, so she'd go out for a night of bridge, and my dad would be home with us, and the only thing my dad made was Kraft macaroni and cheese. And she would get so frustrated because my younger sister, and I would always say, Dad's macaroni and cheese is so much better than yours, Mom. And the only reason is because he actually measured the ingredients. She'd be like, about this much butter, about this much milk. And he actually, because he didn't really know what he was doing, would measure it out. And it turned out when you follow the instructions, it tastes better. But. All right.
So I think mine is about covered. Okay. You will have discovered, I should have said this earlier, you can't stir this like you'd stir brownies. You sort of have to toss it around because you don't want to completely smash your cereal.
Right.
Did you say you have to fold it in?
Yes. Around the outside and then through the middle.
If only Moira Rose had watched this cooking show. I hope there are Schitt's Creek fans watching. For those of you who are watching after the fact, or even those of you who are here, my area of expertise is television, and I'm a big TV fan. So I had my Schitt's Creek spatula, and I just realized I'm drinking out of my Pawnee Goddesses glass, which is from Recreation. And I'm wearing my apron that's inspired by Claire Saffetz's cooking show, dessert person and gourmet makes. So I'm very on brand today. I'm very on brand. All right.
And you can see what I'm doing is just making little piles.
Okay. Like just heaping them up.
Heaping them up. And I'm always using my other hand to sort of keep it, like that one's spread apart too much. So I'm just gonna push it together.
Okay. Now, Cece, was this like an everyday cookie at your house when Ryan was growing up, or was it a special occasion cookie?
It's always a Christmas cookie.
Okay.
I always make these at Christmas. Okay. But it is something that he would say, especially in the fall, you know, oh, could you make crunchy cookies? I'm so hungry for crunchy cookies.
Now, I have to ask, I realize I don't know the answer to this. I know that that President O'Day loves soccer. Did Ryan play soccer also? Because I'm imagining this is a soccer treat.
He played soccer for a very short time.
Okay.
He played for a little bit in like kindergarten or first grade because it was the organized sport that kindergartners and first graders could play.
Right, sure.
But by the time he got to fourth grade, he said, it was his idea. He came to us and said, I'd really like to play lacrosse. They're starting a lacrosse team for fourth and fifth graders, and I'd really like to play lacrosse.
Okay.
So he played lacrosse. He was also, since the age of 5, he was a swimmer.
Sure.
So he did swim all through high school and, you know, all through elementary school and all of that stuff.
What were his swimming events?
He swam everything. He swam a lot of IM.
Uh-huh.
A lot of backstroke, a lot of breaststroke. Lula and Lily will say, oh, and then he swam 200 free also. So
Is that a story you guys have heard before?
I don't know if they've heard it about Ryan, but I've talked to them about 200 freestyle enough times.
That's funny. That is funny. When I was a kid, I tried every sport once and nothing stuck. I ran track. I tried field hockey. I tried the field events. I tried basketball. I tried volleyball. I tried, you name it, tennis. Nothing stuck. Nothing stuck. That's okay. I did theater instead.
Small
That was
town.
something else, as President O'Day says.
I grew up in a small town where the only sport for girls was basketball,
Oh,
which was my mother's sport, which she really wanted me to be good at. And I was tall, of course, so everyone thought like, oh yeah, she'll be, but I don't have that killer instinct. I didn't ever want to like play defense like against my friends.
yeah.
I am scraping the bowl to get as much of the gooey stuff out as possible, and then just sort of dropping it on wherever it looks like it needs a little more.
Okay.
And then you just let these sit.
Okay.
They need a couple hours for the butterscotch to harden up again, and then you have, you know, something that will stick together.
Awesome. Okay. That's exciting.
So there we go. First thing.
This is a very disorganized cooking show over here on my set. I don't know why my prep crew didn't get their stuff together ahead of time. Okay. Well, they smell delicious, as Corbett, my 7-year-old, said. They smell very good. I love butterscotch anyway. All right. Wash your hands.
All right. Yeah, because I have stuff all over them.
All right. So should we get out the apple crisp ingredients now, Cece?
Yes. Apple crisp ingredients. We're starting with apples, so really you're just going to need your apples right now. And the pan you're going to put them in. It really doesn't matter that much what size pan you have. Don't use something, if I'm making apple crisp for a lot of people, I use a great big baking dish. I would double the amount of crumbs we're going to make, but you know, really, you just need your baking dish. And leave it there. I started a little bit.
Again, my prep crew has let me down, so I'm going to go rinse my apples very quickly.
Did she just say she's going to wash her apples? You do not need to wash your apples.
Well, I guess because I'm peeling them, I don't need to wash
Yeah,
them.
you don't have to do any of that stuff because we're taking it all off.
Well, never mind then.
As I said in the list of ingredients, you're going to want to be using baking apples rather than eating apples.
Right.
I will confess, Heidi has heard this story before. This is one of my frustrations of shopping in Sherman, Texas.
I can't imagine you have any frustrations about shopping in Texas, but okay, lay it on me.
I can't find the apples that I want.
Yeah.
I know that I am very lucky to have lived in a place where when I wanted apples, I went to the orchard and bought the apples. If I wasn't going to pick them myself, they were in a great big wooden packing crate, and you just went out there and picked out the apples you wanted, and I could get Stayman wine sap apples, which are really the best baking apples ever.
Right.
But I did my research, and Fuji's were one of the other apples that were recommended.
Okay.
For me, Granny Smiths are too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really want in a baking apple is an apple that will hold its shape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to flop into mush like applesauce.
Right.
So that it will hold its shape, but it will get soft.
Right.
And that it is juicy without becoming really, really wet when it bakes.
Yeah, that's tricky.
So many of you, some people and friends said, "Oh, do you want to use my special apple corer peeler and for your show?" And I told them, "No, I'm just going to do apples the regular way, because as soon as I try to use a special gadget, it won't work properly."
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
Cece already knows my response to that, which is that I grew up in Texas and have no concept of a baking apple.
Yes. Right.
So I have just not done my homework, as I told y'all. So I have like a Granny Smith, whatever this is, and one Fuji. So I think this middle one's a Honey Crisp. We're going to find out. We've got all kinds
That'll
of
work.
assorted apples today.
We do like honey
And-
crisp in my house.
Yeah, you can just use them, and it turns out the way it turns out.
Yeah. I thought all apples were eating apples, you see.
No, they're not. That's okay.
I learned about that.
You're excused. Now, Cece,
Dr. Appleseed's apples that he planted were for cider
Yes.
Yeah,
from
have different characteristics.
yeah.
Now, Cece,
body
did you
of
grow up in
desire.
Pennsylvania? I'm sorry, I keep trying to talk over other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Northwest Ohio.
Okay.
So yes, I too miss a good apple orchard.
Yes, I did the 8th grade genealogy project, and had to do the whole family tree, and successfully, because somewhere there was a book that helped me, because this was, of course, all pre-ancestry.com. But I did. I managed to trace on my mother's side in particular family tree that Hesses and Weavers and Charleses have pretty much been living in Lancaster County since the mid to early 1700s.
Wow.
So
that's exciting. That's fun.
yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, one thing Texas has that we don't have in the Midwest, though, is good Tex-Mex. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Shortly after I moved to Texas, I went to a conference, and a bunch of my colleagues, we were actually in Ann Arbor, Michigan for the conference. And a bunch of my colleagues were like, let's all go get dinner. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I was like, what does everybody want? And people were like, oh, let's go here. They've got tacos. And I was like, I really don't want an Ann Arbor taco after having lived in Sherman, well, Texas for, at that point I'd been here like 6 months or so. No thanks.
Well, you can also get much better mango here on a regular basis than in Pennsylvania,
Sure.
which is nice.
I don't know if you've had this experience, Cece, but shortly after I was here, I was talking to students, and one of the things I mentioned was that I'd never been to Mexico. And they were like, what? How you never been to Mexico? And I said, well, excuse me, have you ever been to Canada? And they were like, Canada? And I was like, listen, Mexico to you is Canada to me. I was 2 hours away from Canada. So we went to Canada, not to Mexico. So funny. So funny. So now where does this apple crisp recipe come from, Cece?
This is another family recipe.
Okay.
My mom, I don't even know where the crunchy cookies, the haystacks, I'm pretty confident my mom got from the pages of Good Housekeeping in the early 70s.
Okay.
This one, I really don't know. When I've been making this one for a long time, but I dug it out. This is the recipe for apple crisp that I have.
Amazing.
It's written on this teeny, it's the corner of a piece of scrap paper, and it has 5 ingredients, 350 for 45 minutes written on it, and that's it. So.
Can I ask what we're supposed to do with the apples after we peel them?
Yes, I have been peeling and quartering, and when we are, just because it's easier for me to do all of that at once. Yep. You can't
So you're
see
slicing it like.
Yep. We're gonna slice
How
it.
many pieces are we talking about here?
We are talking about pretty thin slices. Here is my quarter of an apple, or third, sixth, and I have made pretty thin slices.
Okay.
Thickness of a coin, like a quarter.
Mine are a little haphazard.
Yes. and I have some that, look like, oh, here's a really good slice. And then I have other ones that, oh, that one turned out really thin. That one's got a piece out of it. It doesn't matter that much. We're trying for relative uniformity, because then it bakes a little more easily.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I bake a lot, but this is literally the first time in my life I've ever baked an apple, because I don't really love baked fruit.
Okay.
But I'm going to try it. So that's why I need all the instructions you can give me. Don't take anything for granted, please. I've been sitting here with these whole peeled apples waiting, and I realized you've moved on. You've got yours sliced and in the pan.
Sorry.
Mr. Tricker. Thank you.
Also, depending on what your apples look like, because like I said, I liked going to the orchard and, pulling apples out of the bin and getting them. And when you do that at Thanksgiving, you're usually getting really nice apples. When you're doing that in February, they've been sitting in the bin since Thanksgiving.
Right.
And it's outside, it's cold. It's not like they're sitting there rotting, but sometimes you get some dark spots or some soft spots, and you just cut that out and throw it away with the peels. You don't have to throw out the whole apple unless the whole apple is really gross. And after...
Lula and Lily, are you guys cooking along this time, or are you just watching? You're cooking along? Hey, look at that.
And after I have my apples sliced up, I'm just sort of, pulling them apart a little bit so that they aren't stuck together in that wedge, and spreading them out in my pan.
Great. And now, students on the call, have you guys had apple crisp before? Is this a dessert you've had?
No.
I don't think I've ever had it before.
I think apple pie. Apple pie's close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I think
We've
You
had
would
it-
you'd use the same kind of apples for apple pie as you'd use for apple crisp.
baking apples. Now you know. Awesome. Yeah, maybe this just isn't a Texas kind of dessert.
Yeah.
Maybe since we don't have orchards. Maybe we have orchards and I just don't know about it. I grew up in West Texas as well, where apples are not on the like agricultural menu.
I was waiting, that just like trailed off, Heidi. I was like, where's this going? I grew up in Texas where.
I was trying to think of how to finish. There actually was like an apple orchard you could drive to, like maybe an hour away from where I lived. But the apples were disgusting. Like they were little and hard and sour.
Oh, yeah.
So it was more of like an experience. Oh, you can go pick apples, but you didn't actually want to eat them.
Right. Definitely not. Now, Cece, do you do a lot of cooking these days or no?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I wasn't sure.
I do.
You enjoy cooking?
I do. I like to cook. I like to bake. I tend to be more intimidated by meat. Like I don't really do steak. If we're going to have really good steak, that's something to order in a restaurant. Partly because I'm afraid that I will, that's a sort of expensive ingredient and I'm afraid I'll ruin it.
Sure. I understand that. What about Lula and Jade and Lily? Do you guys cook a lot or no?
We're
working on it.
we're in our first flat.
Yeah.
So it's been an experience.
Very simple meals.
Yeah.
Frozen food.
No.
Trader Joe's frozen
Yes.
stuff.
It's a fun time.
You gotta start somewhere, I'm telling you.
Trader Joe's Mandarin orange chicken.
Very good. Very good.
Highly recommend it.
When I was your age, but when I was a senior in college, my roommate and I also had like a suite style housing with a kitchen, and we were still trying to figure out how to cook too. I remember one time my roommate, who is now a very good cook and also a very important and awesome lawyer in Washington D.C., but that's neither here nor there. But she was like, I'll make tacos. And I was like, oh, okay, I love tacos. And she did not put any seasoning on the tacos. It was just browned ground beef. Wasn't great. It wasn't great. Sorry, Carol, if you're watching. It was not your best effort, but it was many years ago. She's better now. Now she'll post stuff to Instagram like, look at this gorgeous roast chicken and vegetables I made and things like that. And I always think, if only you did that in 2003, we would have been eating much better.
One of my college roommates cooked dinner for me for the first time this year.
Whoa.
So never too late to learn.
That's right. You got to start somewhere. I ate a lot of frozen pot pies that year too. They're delicious because they're full of salt.
Where is that?
The salt is tasty.
Okay.
All right, what do we have?
Are people ready to start on the crumbs, or should we wait a little bit for you to finish slicing apples?
I think people are ready.
Okay.
Thumbs
All
up.
right.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, so what's up next?
Next, we're going to make the crumbs. So you're going to need a larger bowl. I have the large bowl from my stack of 3.
Okay.
And you're going to need the other ingredients for the crumbs.
Okay.
We start out with our Quaker oats.
Okay.
You can't use instant oatmeal that you put boiling water on and stir up. That will not work.
Right.
And we need a cup.
I'm making a mess here. Okay.
Then we will need a cup of brown sugar.
Okay. I do not have a cup.
And I remind our student bakers that when you're measuring brown sugar, it gets smushed down.
Yeah, it's
So
stacked.
I put in a lot more than that, and till I smush it down, there we have it.
Okay.
And then that just gets dumped in the bowl with your oats.
Okay. Open up a new bag of brown sugar. Loaded up on baking ingredients before Christmas, so I wouldn't have to run to the store. Okay. Now, Cece, when you and the president moved in, did you bring all of your own baking ingredient, equipment? They didn't, yeah, okay.
Yep. So, okay, and now we will need cinnamon. You just want the regular ground cinnamon. And when you're measuring spices, you usually level it off. I will tell you, I really like cinnamon, so I am not leveling off my teaspoons. The recipe is 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I'm probably using almost 4.
Okay.
But here is my 1 teaspoon. It is full.
Okay. You are not following the very small receipt, back of the receipt recipe to the letter.
I don't think I ever measure spices. I just kind of
Wing it.
Yeah. And I am using regular cinnamon. When you talked about Christmas, Erin, that reminded me, so I got out. My other jar of cinnamon has a little red ribbon around it because my dad got this for me for Christmas.
That's cute.
It is special Vietnamese cinnamon from King Arthur Flowers. So that's
really
good.
Yeah, I've got some apple pie spice from Kenzie's that I'm sprinkling over the apples just because I can. It's got 2 kinds of cinnamon, nutmeg, mace, and cloves.
Nice.
Yeah. Smells really good. Wish we had smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
People on the call can smell what they're making, but if you're watching this later, hopefully you're cooking along with us and you can smell what you're making too.
And now I am getting my stick of margarine.
Okay.
I got mine out last night, so it's been sitting on the counter.
Okay. What if we didn't do that?
Put it in the microwave for 8 seconds. Mine, you can see, I'm squishing it.
Very soft.
And I'm gonna go back over here so you can see. Maybe a little bit better. Yes, put your butter or your margarine, it really doesn't matter which one, in the microwave for 7 or 8 seconds. We don't want it to completely be melted, but soft is helpful. And if it does melt, just bring it back and hold it over the bowl.
Okay. Yeah.
Before I add that to the mixture, I'm just sort of stirring everything else around a little bit.
Okay.
It makes it just a little bit easier.
All right. Mixy, mixy. That's what we say at my house. The kids, they say mixy, mixy.
Mixy, mixy.
We have a stand mixer, and ever since he was teeny tiny, my 7-year-old has called the stand mixer Spinny. That's the stand mixer's name. So we'll say, do we need Spinny for this?
Not this one. So here's my smashed up margarine.
Okay.
I'm just using a regular fork
Okay.
because I'm going to be cutting this in. I suppose if you have a pastry, if you make a lot of pie crust and you have a pastry cutter, you could use that. I don't think it will cut up your oats too much, but I'm just sort of using my fork to chop it, to break it up into little pieces
And mix it in.
and drop it in.
Yeah, I have a pastry cutter. I held it up, but I almost never use my pastry cutter.
I don't even have one.
Yeah.
That is one, partly because I don't really like pie. I don't like pie crust.
Yeah, it's not my favorite either.
And I'm trying to make little pieces because ultimately I'm going to have to whack it all up anyway. And the smaller it is now, the easier it'll be later.
Yeah, I almost never use my pastry cutter. I really should just get rid of it because it's very weird to put in a drawer. It always like gets caught, and it's just.
Yes.
And I almost always use my hands for anything that calls for a pastry cutter. And I don't make many pies, so.
I have learned that I have warm hands.
Oh.
So it just gets too gloopy. So you can see I am trying to use my fork to cut up the butter into little pieces.
Right.
When I find a big wad of butter, I just cut it up and mixy.
Mixing.
That one's gonna stick. Like I
Good. I'm glad.
Cutting butter, I have a question.
Yeah. What's up,
I
honey?
wasn't sure about apple crisp, so I decided to have this recipe with apples, but I realized that I didn't have it with this topping. So is there something else that I would do with this topping, Cece? Like anything you know about I could do with the extra half of this?
I would just put it on the apples.
Okay, just use it all.
Just use it all. Unless it is unless it's going to completely overwhelm your baking dish.
Okay.
Like if it's going to overflow over the top, you don't want that because it'll make a big sticky mess in your oven. But
oh,
yeah.
should my oven be on?
I just thought of that too.
It doesn't matter. We will be putting things in the oven at 350. So if you'd like to preheat, but this really is one of those things that I'd say, well, I usually set my timer for 45 minutes. If you're making a smaller one, it might be less time. Obviously, if you're making a bigger one,
Right.
it's a little longer.
While we're mixing, does anyone else have any questions for First Lady O'Day?
You don't have to ask me anything about the recipe. You can ask me whatever you want.
You heard it here first, folks. Anything you want. This is
There you go.
You can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat.
Oh, we have a question. What is your favorite dinner meal to make?
Oh. I don't know. I have several. I know I said I don't like to make like expensive cuts of meat, but I make really good meatloaf. I do like making meatloaf. We probably have pasta night once a week or almost once a week. And one of my favorite pasta recipes, I make stuffed shells. I had to explain that to a bunch of people. So they are here.
Live, folks, live. She's going to show you the shells. There you go.
They're the jumbo pasta shells. And, you know, when they're cooked, they fit in the palm of your hand. And then you fill them with cheese and put them in a big dish that has all of your spaghetti sauce in there and put the shells full of cheese and then cover it with shredded mozzarella and bake it.
Yeah.
And I really like to make shells. That's a thing that I make. That's a thing that I make better than my mom.
Whoa, fighting words. Okay.
Yes, and that is the one that she said, "Who says you make that better than me?"
Awesome. That's good.
So that's something that I like to make.
Can you tell me what the texture of this crumb stuff should be like right now?
Can you see mine? Here, let me put.
I can, but it's kind of
Small.
small. Maybe I need to put my view so you're big.
Pea-sized pieces of butter.
Pea-sized.
Well, I'm looking at mine now. Some of mine are bigger than that.
Yeah, there's a bigger image for you.
Oh, okay.
Here's a piece of butter. Here's butter. Here, it almost feels like the butter, and the butter is all coated with brown sugar.
Okay,
So
I think I may have overdone it. Mine is sort of feeling like cookies. Like maybe it's melty too much.
Oh, maybe.
Mine's pretty goopy too, but there's no wrong way.
No, it's going to melt once it's in the oven.
I will relax then.
Yeah, it's very forgiving.
And then you're just going to put your crumbs on top of your apples.
All right.
And spread it around so that you have your brown sugar mixture. Like I make sure I push it into the corners so that everything's covered up.
Okay. Now, I've eaten a lot of apple crisps, but I haven't made one in a while because much like Heidi, I think I'm the only person at my house that likes cooked fruit. Andrew will eat it under duress. We'll see if the kids will. I don't know. The oldest is very picky and the youngest is 3. So she's moderately picky.
Does anybody like baked oatmeal?
Tell us about baked oatmeal. What do you mean by that?
What is?
The breakfast dish, baked oatmeal?
Oh, never had it.
I don't like that instant stuff. Oatmeal, I really don't like oatmeal. I don't like that I don't like hot cereal. But this doesn't have that gloppy texture. The oatmeal really sets up.
That's really sweet. You like overnight.
My dad makes this pumpkin pie baked oatmeal, and it's delicious.
Yeah. And this is sort of like apple pie baked oatmeal.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the finished one. And you can see, I'm going to poke around. Here are the baked apples, but the oatmeal has gotten crispier on the top. So.
Right. Now, hang on. I'm going to make your video a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And that's the finished one, right?
This is a bowl of the finished one. Yep.
Yeah. So you've got cooked apples and kind of a crunchier topping.
Yeah. And there you can see the apples are soft and the top is crunchy.
Yeah.
So.
Now, Cece, before we got started today, you told me that Ryan has a particular favorite way to eat apple crisp. Well,
yes.
A couple of favorite ways. You want to tell everybody about those?
Apple crisp as a dessert is great. I like it as, if you have to take it somewhere, you can make apple crisp ahead of time and then, warm it up for later. You can, putting a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of apple crisp is never wrong. If you want to really fancy it up, you can do the scoop of vanilla ice cream and drizzle some caramel syrup over the top. But Ryan would tell you, and I must say I agree, that the best way to eat apple crisp is cold for breakfast. I
like dessert for breakfast, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That Ryan would have been happy if I said, here you go. Here is breakfast this morning. All right.
Cece in the chat said, eating cold pizza for breakfast.
Yeah.
Also, it turns out that amount of crumbs seemed appropriate for my pie pan. So
Okay, before people put things in the oven, I want to see what everyone's made. So I'm going to spotlight everybody. So if you can hold up what you've got. Looks very nice. All right.
so now we put it in the oven?
Yes. Now it goes in the oven. 350.
All right.
If you are setting a timer to check on your apple crisp, set it somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes.
Okay. And we're just looking.
And again, it is one of the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're just looking for the top.
It's one of those. Yes. Yeah, the top is going to flatten down. Here we go. I'm doing this. So I'm hoping that you can see. I've got to get, there we go. This is the one I just put in. I like using clear dishes because then I can see, is it going to start to bubble? Mm-hmm. And it ought to be bubbling at a bunch of places for it to be done. If it is, there's a little bubble in the corner, then it might not be ready yet. But some of those layers are going to squish down and the crumbs on top are going to start looking firm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to grab.
This is very exciting. It feels like the television magic at work.
Yeah. Swap out. This is the one I made before. It's not hot because I made it last night, but you can see how the crumbs are flattened and look a little more baked together than they did before. Mm-hmm. And I can tell that I used two different kinds of apples because this kind of apple really got soft and darker, and this kind of apple stayed firmer and, feels more like a dried apple, and this one's squishier. Mm-hmm. But they both work.
Awesome. It looks awesome.
And if for some reason you find that the other thing, you can always poke at it with a fork when it's in the oven. Mm-hmm. But if you think, the top is getting really brown, just put a piece of foil over the top. Mm-hmm. And that'll keep the crumbs from browning too much.
Yeah.
I think people could tell when I opened the oven that it's sort of a middle shelf. It's not way up high like you broil something. It's not way below. It's just in there on a middle shelf.
Awesome. All right. All right, let's get, if people could grab their Haystack cookies too, let's do that and get a shot of your Haystack cookies as well. I'll get mine. Oh, very nice.
They're not exactly lookers, mine with the shredded wheat, but
I'm not sure they're meant to be the most attractive.
I want to see yours, Jade.
They look good. They look good. Exactly. I'm sure they're delicious. I have no doubt of that.
It's chocolate and peanut butter. How can you go wrong?
You cannot. You obviously cannot. You obviously cannot. Wonderful. All right. Well, again, by the magic of Zoom television, Cece, you chose your recipes so wisely. We are finishing right on the dot of 3:00.
Oh, good.
Good job.
Excellent.
I want to thank everyone for cooking along with us today. And be sure to email me. Oh, that's my 7-year-old's arm. Be sure to email me and Cece and let us know how things turned out once you're able to taste them later today. But thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to let you know that 2 weeks from today at the same time, we'll be back in a different kitchen cooking with student Ray Darthard, who's in class of 2022, and he'll be teaching us how to make chili mac, which if you follow along on the ABC app, he was selling out of his dorm room last fall. So you can come learn from the master. In 2 weeks, we'll be cooking with Ray, cooking chili mac with Ray. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you so much, Cece, for having us in your kitchen today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was fun. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good Saturday. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.